decided about 10 minutes ago that he didn't want to do the debate no more. And hey, it is what it is. So, but Sean, he put together a presentation. We're not gonna let it go to waste. So we're gonna let Sean do his presentation. And we're gonna sit back, relax, and watch this. And yeah, just if y'all got any questions throughout, post them in the chat. I'm sure Sean doesn't mind interacting and answering these questions. If anybody wants to come on after he finishes his presentation, just a dialogue with the brother, y'all also have that option as well. But we're gonna let Sean rock out right quick. And before you get started, Sean, if you wouldn't mind, can you give us a little bit of background information about yourself and projects that you're working on and have worked on? Just a little bio, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So, well, for those who don't know me, my name is Sean. On Facebook, it's Isrealites, Sean Calfani, member of the Mossi Warrior Clan and the Kofi Paisai research team. Also a member of the Seshu Mani Metal Nature. So we deal with, ancient Egyptian texts, which is the Sesh, or what you may know as the hieroglyphics. That team, we pretty much break down texts, and which basically means we translate the text, and we go into the cultural context of the text, and we could dispel some of the misconceptions that way with the Metal Nature. As far as other avenues, I was writing when I came into the community, so I was doing like some little journal stuff that I got started with Naya, Voices of Fire, and we penned a couple of articles there. I had something show up on the Amara Squad website regarding debate that was supposed to have transpired between the Amara Squad and Seti and Young Pseudo. However, I continue to keep on writing, and then we did a collective book, the Seshu. We did a book rebuttaling or dispelling the myth that the Metal Nature had not been deciphered, which is written by our dear elder Professor Walter Williams. And from there, I was in the Conscious Community First Pan-African Journal. I wrote an article in that, which is called Killmonger's Corner, Volume 1. Black Panther put that together. Then from there, the Kofi Paisai research team, we put together a collective of 3 volumes. I did an independent children's book and a little biography about the last few years of my life regarding from cocaine to consciousness, as far as that text. Working on another project as I speak, but I'm in my literature review stage presently. Probably been in the community maybe 5-6 years. Met Garfield a long time ago. Probably been a few places like Kentucky, been in New York, a few other places. Wherever him and Monica was at, I probably was with them a long time. But I learned early being around the group, Amara Squad and Garfield and everybody, that methodology was key. So I got some resources from Brother Ben that led me to stay strictly on the methodology tip. So you always hear them, clowning me about methodology. But that's pretty much how it goes. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope, bro. We got a few more. We got Moody on here and Ronald Lizardi. If y'all want to introduce yourselves before Sean dives into the presentation, y'all have an opportunity to do so now. If y'all don't, I get it. You know what I'm saying? We can rock on out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, nah, this I'm good. I'm good. Ready for the info.
Hey, what's going on? This is Mudiwa Mugabe from Los Angeles, man. Just get straight to the meat and potatoes, bro. Let's get to it.
Or appreciate that. Without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and get into it now. I titled it this way because I'm actually deal with the actual title of the debate here in a second.
Hey,
but this is
one second. I'm sorry, bro. So like we got 107 people in here. We only got 43 likes. So hit that like button before Sean gets started. Everybody also share this video on your social media timeline, because if you watched it, it gotta be important. So share this with your family, share this with your friends. So hit the share button, hit the like button, and let's go ahead, get your popcorn, sit back, and let Sean do his thing. My bad, bro. Go ahead.
No, you good. All right, so I titled it this way for a reason, because really it's about debunking a particular myth. And again, here's some of the works that we have done as the research team, Coffee Pot Side Research Team, and Killmonger's Corner Volume 2. It's all out on coffeepotsidetv.com. And Killmonger's Corner is on Amazon. And then Boca's the clothing line that we just launched like last week. So please support, check that out. This is the actual debate title. As you can see, Jeremiah put a flyer together, and he said, did the Jews come to the Americas via transatlantic slave ships? Him versus me. Now, initially on Monday, there was some contention about the actual title of the debate by me, because if you look at the title and say, did the Jews come to the Americas via the transatlantic slave ship, that all he got to do was show somebody on a boat that was an actual Jew, a white Jew, and then that would answer the question and wouldn't require much information beyond that. However, I wanted more clarity on it for him to be specific so that we know that the people were enslaved on those ships. I wanted enslaved on those ships. You know, that really was my only contention about that. However, he said he wanted to do a two-part debate. Then I was like, okay, whatever, you know what I'm saying? You're trying to have some type of moral victory or some easy way that you can try to, you know, try to one up me. You know what I mean? And so, you know, he laughed about it. And then, you know, I basically told him how I felt about the title. And then I just left it like that. My whole key word out of the only difference I really had was enslavement. So, you know, I told him I'd even debate him at this particular title just to kind of get him in the room and I can box him in and we can try to get to it. So let me go ahead and move forward. Look, got the time and everything on here. You know what I'm saying? So here's the outline, the research question. And I'm gonna give you the research question again, because this is what I presented to him. And you'll see the difference. It's no different than what he already basically said. I just added the word difference to be more specific. I needed specification because he actually was trying to trap me on the title. I'm gonna show you my method, quick definition of Jews and Hebrews, my opening argument, secondary argument, and conclusion. And to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, all I really needed was one round. I didn't want to do a second round. I wasn't going to do a second round. A second or third round, all I really was going to do was refute whatever he presented. If I presented first, then my next rounds, all I was going to do was dispel his myths. I was going to put him on the scale and not allow him time to adjust. I don't care if he know this now, he can know it in the future. I don't play fair. I'm going for the swing the first round, and then all the other rounds, he got to make up ground and try to prove himself, not to me, but to the audience. So here's the research question. This is where I began at it. Were Jews, Hebrew, Israelites, look at me, be more specific in this, enslaved in West Africa and shipped to the New World? That's all that I wanted clarity on, is that we were hunkered down and specific about the title. Not did Jews come to the Americas via the transatlantic slave trade. I'm still refuting the fact about the Jews coming to the America via the transatlantic slave trade, but I'm being specific here. Enslaved in West Africa and shipped to the New World. That's all I wanted clarity on. And it looked like he wanted to run away from that because he started trying to come up with a secondary title and then say we didn't agree or anything like that. I'm not going to let you run like that. No matter the title, bro, I was going to show up and I was going to show my information and my research and let you do whatever you wanted to do. My hypothesis is when the Holocaust transpired in West Africa, people who called themselves Jews, Hebrews, or Israelites could not have been enslaved and shipped across the Atlantic. People that crossed the Atlantic bound and shackled carried neither a Jewish or Israelite culture. I am of the belief that this identity crisis took shape among Black Christians around the 1800s who wanted to connect themselves to a biblical narrative that became popular in North America around the 16th and 17th century during what some call the Black Judaism movement, which seemed to be a philosophical claim rooted in the beliefs of numerous Hebrew Israelite camps. It's my hypothesis. My method. I will make a clear distinction of who actually crossed the Atlantic via primary and secondary sources using Portuguese, famous chronicler, Arab scholars, as well as show European manifest journals along with newspaper articles, which shows a clear distinction of who these people are. Had I known it wasn't debate, I would have just loaded up and just exhausted it with a whole lot of other stuff. First, I need to define what a Jew is and what a Hebrew Israelite is, because there are some misconceptions of where we're trying to identify people that actually had to be on the boat. We need to know if these people were enslaved and on this boat. So the definition of a Jew is any person whose religion is Judaism. In the broader sense of the term, a Jew is any person belonging to the worldwide group that constitutes, through descent or conversion, a continuation of the ancient Jewish people who were themselves descendants of the Hebrews of the Old Testament. Black Hebrew Israelite, by name of the original African Hebrew Israelite nation of Jerusalem, African American religious community in Israel, the members of which considered themselves to be the descendants of a lost tribe of Israel. Black Hebrew Israelites hold religious beliefs that differ from those of modern Jewish communities in Israel. Now, let me try to get a little bit more validity here. The point of contention is the fact that one of the beliefs of the Hebrew Israelite communities is that they are the chosen, or they are the descendants of a particular people. They are the chosen people, and they were enslaved and shipped to the New World and dispersed. That's one of their major claims. That is why I was trying to be specific here so that we can have clarity, because this is a myth that is taught among the Hebrew members in the conscious community. So I wanted to deal specifically with one portion of the doctrine. My opening argument: Jeremiah Judah has a belief, not a fact, a belief of how these people on those slave ships identified themselves. Instead of lecturing you, I'm going to kill the whole debate immediately. Those people kidnapped, enslaved, and shipped across the Atlantic, over 10 to 15 million people, were Akan, Wolof, Senegalese, Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Fulani, Iwe, Congolese, etc. Everyone who crossed the Atlantic was enslaved because of how Europeans saw them, not because of what they believed. They saw Africans, not Israelites. They saw Africans, not Hebrews. They saw Africans, not Jews. They saw a people who was unarmed, ignorant of certain technology, and gullible at heart. These Africans had their own gods before an Arab or European stepped foot on the continent. These people had an understanding of their own natural world before a European or an Arab. So who are these people Jeremiah claims to be enslaved and shipped across the Atlantic? I'll wait. Looks like I'm gonna be waiting a long time. Once the phase of Muslim conquest was over, none of the protected subject, dhimmi, such as Jews, Christians, or Zoroastrians, could be reduced to slavery. Slaves had to be sought elsewhere in the countries near and far, or obtained by raids, but mostly by purchase from weaker, less tightly knitted societies that were incapable of defending themselves. One of the major areas where slaves could be procured was those parts of Africa inhabited by blacks, i.e., the Eastern Littoral, Nubia, Ethiopia, and Central and Western Sudan. Muslim law acknowledges only two sources of legitimate slavery: birth in servitude and capture in war. This word, dhimmi, this Arab word, is key, because if a Jew or Hebrew was enslaved, it would have to be before Muslim conquest. Did the transatlantic kidnapping kick off between these dates, 622 AD or 750 AD? I think not. We were in the 1400s, the age of discovery, right? So immediately, they already had a pact. But let's continue. Since Christians and Jews were responsible for the bookkeeping of the Muslims and also helped in writing the Quran, this makes sense why no Jew or Christian would be enslaved. Now ask yourself this question. How could the Muslim distinguish phenotypically who was or was not a Christian or a Jew? Jews exist in Africa for political and economical control. Without the Jewish influence, you won't have Jewish interests in Africa. See, the Jews only established themselves in areas where they needed to control the message and the money. Here we have the opening to the book letters of the medieval traders. Garfield antenna just went up. International trade depended on a network of personal relationships and mutual confidence. Organization was largely through partnerships based usually on ties of common religion, but often reinforced by family connections. Sometimes the partners of Jews were Christians or Muslims, and the letters show these descendants working together in greater harmony than has been thought, even in partnerships that lasted through generations. Remember now, Muslims was in West Africa way before these Jews. So if these Jews coming down here and they're doing business and trade and so on and so forth, why would these people who claim to be Hebrews or Jews be enslaved by these people, sold to another people, and shipped out? The Portuguese were just learning about the Arabian slave trading business. They had learned that the Negro Africans came from a place farther south in Africa than the Portuguese had yet sailed. They learned that Arab traders liked the Negroes better than the Tuaregs and the Berbers from the north because they were more docile and willing to work. Oops, let me go back one slide. Here we go. This is from the chronicler Gomez Inez de Zora. You can look him up. Real person, real being, heavily influenced in the trafficking of Africans. Very early in the morning, because of the heat, a few Portuguese seamen on the decks of a half dozen 100-ton caravels, the new sailing ships, were preparing on August the 8th, 1444, to land their African cargo near Lagos on the southwest point of Algarve in Portugal. This cargo consisted of 235 slaves. On arriving on the mainland, these people were placed in the field. I'm going to be more specific in a minute. Most of the captives of the 1444 had been taken by the Portuguese in the village, where they, the Portuguese, shouted out, St. James, St. George, in Portugal, at once attacked them, killing and taking all they could. Then might you see mothers forsaking their children and husband their wives, each striving to escape as best they could. Some drowned themselves in water. Others thought to escape by hiding under their huts. Others stole their children among the seaweed, where our men found them afterwards. This venture was the first real venture into West Africa led by La Carte de Freitas, and is documented. From 1444 onwards, Zoroastrian's history mentions in every chapter kidnapping of more and more Africans by Portuguese captains in even more southern latitudes. The technique of these captures was inherited from attacks on Moors in Portugal or in Spain. There was little innovative about it, for this side of the African adventure had not been foreseen by those who began it. That quote is from Zoroastrian's work. Being a modern man, Zelita would usually have his slaves vaccinated before they set off across the Atlantic. And by the 1850s, he began to use for the passage steamboats capable of carrying over 1,000 captives. Being a Catholic, he had his slaves baptized before they left Africa. For most of the 18th century, the majority of American slaves were African by birth. I'm gonna say that again for everybody who ain't paying attention. For most of the 18th century, the majority of American slaves were African by birth. For many years, they spoke African languages. Advertisements seeking information about runaways often described them by African origin: young Gambia Negro, new Bambara Negro fellow, and spoke of their bearing on their bodies country marks, visible signs of ethnic identity in Africa. For anyone who needs to know what visible mark or country markings they're talking about the scarifications, visible signs of ethnic identity in Africa. Okay, is scarifications on Hebrews? Are they identifying themselves with scarifications? Elements of African culture were evident throughout the southern colonies in the 18th century America in the name of slaves and their religions, including in some areas Islam, in their African food, music, ritual, and dance. Forever Free, the story of emancipation and reconstruction by Eric Fauner. Now we're going to deal with Canots' account via enslaving Africans from the interior with Mongo Jack. Earlier, you heard people talking about Luso Africans and all of that, right? Talked about the mulatto, right? They don't like to use the word mulatto. Well, Mongo Jack, if you know anything about the story of Mongo Jack, his affiliation with the creation of a strategy that helped him prepare to get to the interior of Africa was to basically have sex with a West African queen. I think she was she had land, so she pretty much was there. They had a baby together and all of that. His son learned the language, the culture of the people. Boom, he gets into the interior because of the knowledge and the wisdom that he grown through all of that. But he stuck, Mongo Jack's son stuck to him like white on rice and began to take in his way. You know, pretty much the first mulatto slave trader pretty much is Mongo Jack Jr. So accordingly, I returned on board to aid in storing 108 boys and girls, the eldest of whom did not exceed 15 years. Each morning at daylight, a cry went through the town announcing the character of their specific trade, which would be carried on during hours of business. One day it was in the hides, another rice, another cattle. When these were disposed of, a time was specially appointed for the exchange of gold, ivory, and slaves. And at the agreed hour, Mr. Orman, Ahmad Bella, and myself locked the doors of the warehouse and traded through a window while our barkers distributed the goods to the Africans, often using their whips to keep the chattering and disputations scamps in order. The Fula at once wrote down a favorite prayer in Arabic, requiring my spiritual guide that I should commit it to memory for constant and ready use. After a day or two, he examined me in the ritual, but finding I was at fault after the first sentence, reproached me pathetically upon my negligence and exhorted me to repentance, much to the edification of our interpreter, who was neither Jew, Christian, nor Muslim. These are the words of Captain Canot. Captain Canot's story can also be found. He actually documented his entire story in situations with Mongo Jack and how they went into the interior to capture Africans and bring them across, sell them off, and handle his business like that. But his interpreter, Canot's interpreter, was neither a Jew, Christian, nor Muslim. His interpreter was an African. The Bubu people are one out of 50 ethnic groups in Africa from which the African ancestors of most African descendants in the Americas originate. I'm gonna say it again. The Bubi people are one out of 50 ethnic groups in Africa from which the African ancestors of most African descendants in the Americas originate. People extracted from the kingdom and forced into the transatlantic slave trade were among 24% of all those exported out of the Bight of Biafra region. In the United States, genealogical research indicates that many African-American families are direct descendants of the Bubi people. Moving on. Here we have the articles that I mentioned earlier. These were all pressed and published in newspapers. Here we have one on December 5th, 1780, I think, one. It says for sale on Monday, the 17th instant on board the ship Jane. So the ship name is Jane. Says John Hewen, may after from Bonnie. Anybody know where Bonnie is located? 620 choice young Igbo Negroes. Young Igbo Negroes.
You mean Hebrew, right? Oh man.
The next one says Martha Bray, November 30th, 1781, for sale on Monday, the 17th of December, on board the Lord Germain, which is the name of the ship. 450 prime Fanti, Ashanti, and Akan, but they say Akim Negroes. So on November the 30th, 1781, you got 450 people, the Fanti, Ashanti, and Akan, but they say Akim, aboard the Lord Germain. All right, this next one is a Unity article. It's just saying they get healthy men and women here. They don't get specific in the news article. Gold Coast slaves for sale on Tuesday the 16th. On board the ship Commerce, Captain Thomas Morton's, directly to Gold Coast, a cargo of upwards of 200 prime slaves. Negroes for sale by John and Thomas Morton. You got them again. Here you go to be more specific. Number 2, the cargo of the ship Venus, Captain Bokombe, consisting, because you know they wrote S's like F's back in that time, of 280 prime slaves. Mostly, I want to say, mostly men from the Gold Coast. The sale will be open in a few days upon very generous terms. So now we know we got 2 articles published regarding people from the Gold Coast. Where's the Gold Coast? In Africa. Gambia Negroes to be sold on Tuesday the 7th of June on board the ship Mentor. I ain't even got to read no further, but if I do, it says a cargo of 150 prime healthy young Negroes just arrived in said ship from the River Gambia after a passage of 35 days. So they was on board for 35 days, 150 prime. It says the Negroes from this part of the coast of Africa are well acquainted with cultivation of rice and currently industrious. What are they? I'm gonna read it again. A cargo of 150 prime healthy young Negroes just arrived in said ship from the River Gambia after a passage of 35 days. The Negroes from this part of the coast of Africa are well acquainted with the cultivation of rice and are naturally industrious. This is a news article regarding the yacht Wanderer. I'm not going to read all of this, but this was in June 1857. They're saying the Wanderer was pretty much a ghost ship. It really didn't a yacht. It really didn't have anybody on it, you know, but it was running cover for a ship that actually did have our ancestors on it. Now, there was a trial about this. It ended up being published in the newspaper, and the more specific part is the very last sentence in this. It says, many of the Africans have been seen and identified as natives of Africa. So when these people were seen, where they were seen at, you want me to be a little bit more specific? You're talking about the island of Jekyll, the Long Island or whatever, this, you know, like in South Carolina.
Yeah. Hey, Sean,
all right.
I do want to make an announcement. We have a special guest on the panel. We just added him in here. We have the notorious, the infamous, the ever-running Jeremiah Judah came back. He just left again.
Bro, he just left again, bro. He just left again.
All right. Let me go. All right. All right, so here's a page from the Law Book of Black Prince. I didn't get too specific, but you can find it in the library, the BBC library, and it talks about the actual voyages, and it tells you the people's first names, of course, which they really couldn't make out. And of course, slave voyages ties right back into that as well. Now, to be a little bit more specific here, the departure that Blake had ambiguously recorded, in fact, put the departed very much in jeopardy. According to the understanding the African captives brought to the occurrence, for it was marked by the absence of traditional mortuary ritual, a distressing failure to act. If the prescribed ritual was not performed, death threatened to have far-reaching consequences for both the deceased and the living. Nowhere was the truer than in the Atlantic, where the most central element of mortuary practices was lacking: earth. Anybody familiar with the Tomboros presentation? This was in my presentation I did on the Mossi, where it's a journal that inscribes these African people, how many of the people, where they departed from, how it went down. These are actual accounts. And it's actually in the National Library. So this is Captain Blake's journal, which is still what I'm referring to. He says, on the 20th of January, a man received from Wayimba, thin and consumed to nothing, and so die. And then they said they reprieve of 5 days. So they basically chilled out for 5 days. On the 5th day, they received a woman from the same place in West Africa. Wasted nothing, and so died. Then a lapse of 12 days went by. This is, Captain Blake's journal is telling us his day-to-day life in West Africa, docked off to the ship, and every other day they were bringing new people aboard the ship pretty much until they began to set sail. Now, he says, Africans, well, let me give it to you just like this. Africans have encountered Jewish myths and traditions in multiple forms and under a number of situations. The context and circumstances of these encounters produce a series of influences that gradually led, with some African societies, to the elaboration of a new Jewish identity connected with that of the diaspora. That comes from Bruder and that work. I know y'all got that work. But this is pretty much where all this little myth making comes from. My conclusion, based on the available data, Africans boarded those ships, nothing more, nothing less. Ship manifests, news articles, and chroniclers did not see a Jew or a Hebrew in the African whatsoever. They saw phenotypically a people who did not look like them, nor the Arab. Regardless of being Christianized before boarding the ship, that did not stop enslavers from hauling anyone off the west coast of Africa over a religious belief that honestly was foreign to Africans who geographically are not the descendants of a biblical narrative. Here are my sources. I got another page to go. But if you're watching it, screenshot it, critique it, get to it, pull. I'm loaded. More sources. Let me get the error out the way, my bad, y'all. And that's how I'm ending it right there. And if Jeremiah want to hop back on and get to business, he's more than welcome to go ahead and run his spiel. I went a whole different angle than what I could have to beat him up. I feel like this would be more fun.
Man, Jeremiah, if you don't come back on here, bro, you will now be the yellow Hebrew. Matter of fact, you will be the Hebrew. You will be the running man. You will be your name will be JJ the running man from now on out, bro. Ain't that what what's all that they had called you? Poopa Scoop?